I'll open the planning and development joint hearing with the planning board meeting to review short-term rental units and fence and site walls in downtown overlay district. We have Jim McCauley, so the planning and development committee has a quorum. So Chair Sontag, you want to call planning board to order?
Yes, this is the April 15th, 2020 planning board meeting. We'll begin with an overview of the agenda. First, there'll be a roll call. Then there will be a joint public hearing with the Planning and Development Committee and the Committee of the Whole on short-term rental units. And the second one is on fences and site walls in downtown overlay district, both of which will be continued. There's one public hearing, Newburyport Parks Department, 40 Low Street, known as Fuller Field. This is a major site plan review. Under other business, we have approval of our minutes from the April 1st meeting, and then any other updates from the chair, planning director, or any other member of the board. I will begin with the roll call. Please respond when your name is called. James Bruger. Beth DeLille.
I'm here.
Ann Gardner.
Here.
Tanya Hartford. Leah McGavern. Rick Tainter.
Here.
MJ Verde.
Here.
Don Walters.
Here.
Bonnie Sontag here. So we have a quorum. Okay. So as Councillor Shan mentioned, the first joint public hearing item is short-term rentals. This is the zoning amendment. And I'd like to have the planning board take a vote first, and then planning development committee can take their vote, and then we'll move on to fences and site walls.
Okay.
I'm going to read the proposed motion and then request someone to make that motion and a second. Short-term rental units. Motion to continue the joint public hearing with the Planning and Development Committee and Committee of the Whole regarding the proposed zoning amendment for short-term rental units until June 17, 2020. Said meeting shall be located either in the City Hall auditorium or online via remote participation with confirmation and access information, if it's actually remote or a virtual meeting, to be posted on the city website meetings calendar accordingly, pending further guidance on COVID-19 social distancing protocols in the days ahead. All interested parties should look to the meeting's calendar on the city website as June 17, 2020 approaches. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
By whom?
Rick.
Thank you. And do we have a second?
I'll second, Don.
Thank you, Don. Any discussion? No. Okay, all those in favor, and I'm going to take a roll call again. If I can remember, I'm going to try to just go through the ones who are here. Oh, actually not, because, yeah, I'll just, the ones who are here. Beth DeLille.
Yes.
Ann Gardner.
Yes.
Rick Tainter.
Yes.
MJ Verde.
Yes.
Don Walters.
Yes.
Bonnie Sontag, yes. And the abstentions will be James Bruger, or I guess, Andy, how do you want to handle that?
Sorry, you mean in terms of separate votes?
No, the people who are not present, are they automatically listed as absent? Do they abstain?
Yeah, so we're actually going to list them as absent from the meeting unless they're able to make a connection. I know Tanya had said she would not be participating, I think.
This is just in terms of the vote. How do we?
Oh, yeah, so they would be absent. We have a checkbox that's basically absent or abstained, and we just check that box. In this instance, we're treating them literally as absent.
Okay, fine. Councillor Shand, I turn it over to you for this particular item.
I will take a motion.
I would like to make a motion to continue the joint public hearing with the Planning and Development Committee and Planning of the Whole regarding the proposed zoning amendment for short-term rental units until June 17th, 2020. Said meeting shall be located either in the City Hall auditorium or online, with confirmation and access information to be posted on the city website. Meeting calendars accordingly, pending further guidance on COVID-19 social distancing protocols in the days ahead. All interested parties should look to the meeting's calendar on the city website as of June 17th to 2020 approaches.
I second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Chair Sontag?
Okay, we will go on to the next item for the joint public hearing on fences and site walls in the downtown overlay district. The motion is similar to the one I just read out for short-term rental units, but just to be clear, this too will be continued to June 17, 2020 with the same wording. Do I have a motion?
Motion. So moved.
Who's that?
MJ.
Thank you. And second, please.
Ann, second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, I'll read out the names of those present. Beth DeLille,
Yes.
Ann Gardner,
Yes.
Rick Tainter,
Yes.
MJ Verde,
Yes.
Don Walters,
Yes.
Bonnie Sontag, yes. Counselor Shand.
I will make a motion to continue the fences and site walls in downtown overlay district public hearing with the joint Planning and Development Committee and Committee of the Whole until June 17th, similar to what we just did with short-term rental units based off the COVID-19 guidance.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So I will say the Planning and Development Committee I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you. The Planning and Development Committee is done. I would make a note, Bonnie, that you did question about the license and permits part of the ordinance. It was agreed that that too would be joint meeting on June 17th as well.
Aha, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Have a good meeting.
Thank you. Have a good evening, both of you.
Bye.
All right, we'll move on to our one public hearing, which is the Newburyport Parks Department, 40 Low Street being Fuller Field. Major site plan review. This has been continued from whenever it was continued. I'm sorry, I don't have that right in front of me. Oh, I'm sorry. It's been re-advertised. So we're actually reopening it, but we are including all of the discussion that we've had in the past. And at this point, I would ask for an overview of the projects. I was hoping the Parks Director would be here, but is she?
Yes, she is here, and I'm actually allowing both Lise Reed, the Parks Director, and Chris Huntress, who is the consultant who's worked for the Parks Department in developing these plans, to speak at the meeting. So they should be able to speak now if they want to introduce themselves.
This is Lisa Reed, Parks Director, and I will ask Chris Huntress to introduce this project, please.
Sure. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Madam Chair and Andy, thank you very much for having me on. We have made several changes to the plans, but I'll maybe do a quick overview of the entirety of the plan first. The plan is really providing access both to vehicular access and pedestrian access, parking and accessibility into the existing track and field. So it does slightly reconfigure the entry drive as it comes in off of Low Street. It widens it to a full 24 feet with sidewalks on both sides, crosswalks and handicapped access ramps right at the entrance by Low Street. Comes into a gravel parking lot, which would contain approximately 40 spaces in the layout that you see on your screen in front of you. The walkway would continue along the east side of that parking lot and then up to the north side of the track and field where it moves along the entirety of the straightaway and accommodates a 300-seat bleacher, which is also handicapped accessible. Other minor changes or upgrades, I would say, to the park would include an extension of the storage shed that's right in the northwest corner of the track, which would have a 12-foot extension put on the back for ticketing and storage, and a small seating area put out in front. There is over in the parking lot, there are 4 handicap parking spaces with appropriate ADA curb cuts and a turnaround similar in size and scale. If you've been to the one at Cherry Hill, we did that one a number of years ago. It's similar in size and radius to that one. It would allow a vehicle to come in, drop off at that walkway, and then circumnavigate back out to Low Street if the parking was filled. Otherwise, they could park in one of the 40 spaces that's provided. That's a pretty good overview. I'm certainly happy to take questions there, or I can run through, say, there were 5 edits that we've made since we've last been together. Would you like me to run through those?
Yes, please.
Okay. The number 1 was minor drainage edits. We had worked with your peer review consultant, Phil Christensen. We eliminated some of our deeper leaching basins in favor of more shallow horizontal drainage structures due to some depth of marine clay that was noted in the geotech report. So those changes have been made. We added, at the request of the Conservation Commission, we added split rail fence on the edge of the parking. That would be on the west side, right where Andy's cursor is there. And again, closer to Low Street for the first spaces that come in along that. They were concerned that a car or vehicle may just go right off the gravel and into the wetland area. So we added that fence to prohibit that. We added additional plant material to the rain garden and stormwater management feature. Not a lot, but they asked for a little bit more of the same material. At your request, we added 4 bike racks that are along that main walkway. You'll see 2 of them right near the cursor there. Each of the bike racks contains 9 or can hold 9 bikes. And then there are 2 closer down to the flagpole. There you go, right there. They've been added as well. The detail for the bike racks is shown on sheet L3. I think it's detail 11. So you can see that if you'd like, but it's a permanently installed bike rack on a concrete slab. And the final modification was a minor modification at the request of your building inspector. Yep, there's the detail on the bike rack. And the last modification was a minor modification of the handrail on the ADA access ramp to the bleacher that was requested by your building inspector. That's been made as well. I believe that was on sheet L5, I think. Let me get to it. Sorry, L6, detail 5. We've added that detail. So that summarizes all the changes that have been made. We do have a positive recommendation out of your peer review agent. And I'll hand it back to Andy and staff if they've got other reports.
Andy, do you want to tell us if there are any other pieces?
Yes. Thank you, Chair.
We should know about?
Yeah, so for the Office of Planning and Development, we administer the review of site plans and other applications that come to the planning board. We route the plans to other city departments to make sure that they are comfortable with the projects as well. And if there are issues, we address them with the applicant and try to work them out. In this instance, there were a couple of revisions that were made. I think there was actually a widening of the concrete, one of the handicap accessible spaces, I think that was also of note. So they've addressed all the concerns that were raised by departments of the city, as well as Phil Christensen in the stormwater review, and the Conservation Commission has also approved the set of plans here. So we have no reason to object to these particular set of plans. The only thing that will be happening, assuming the planning board approves this, after this will be that the Zoning Board of Appeals will have to approve a freestanding sign because that is their jurisdiction. But the proposed sign, which I could pull up all the detail of, I think it's in the one of the plan sheets, is a pretty standard for Newburyport signage with 2 granite posts and the panel in the middle. So we have no objections, and we actually recommend approval of the site plan as submitted with the more recent plan sheet. For instance, I'm showing right here, which is the revised plan sheet, landscape 6, showing the modified handrail. But all plan sheets are there.
Okay, thanks, Andy. Do any members have any questions or comments at this time? Okay, we'll go to public comment. Would anyone like to speak about this project? If you do, please state your name and your address. There doesn't seem to be anybody, so we'll close the public comment and move on to the decision itself. Before I take a motion, I think we should at least read through the findings. They are pretty straightforward, but I'd like to read them into the record from the draft decision that we received before this meeting. In order to grant site plan approval, the board must first determine that the applicant's project meets specific criteria as provided in section 15G of the Newburyport zoning ordinance. These criteria and the board's project-specific findings for each are enumerated here. There are only general findings, and I will read through them. The applicant is proposing the construction of a new entry drive, gravel parking area, sidewalks, handicapped access, a ticket booth, and bleacher. Community character. The project site is located within the Agricultural Conservation Zoning District, adjacent to residential, institutional, and business uses. This project is consistent with the existing uses in the area. Traffic, parking, and public access. The applicant has provided the required residential parking spaces under the Newburyport zoning ordinance. Health. This project will not involve any substantial noise, vibration, gas, fumes, odor, dust, or other objectionable features. Public services and utilities. The facility will not overload any public water, drainage, or sewer system or any other municipal systems. Land use planning. The proposal is consistent with general land use planning and the AgCon district. The use, new parking configuration, and new landscaping are compatible with adjoining land uses. Open space and environmental protection. No significant environmental impacts are anticipated from the redevelopment of this property. The next section is standard conditions, and those are standard, so I won't have to read those. And there are no special conditions. So are there any further comments from board members before I take a motion? All right, I'll read the draft motion for convenience, and then I'll ask for a motion, a person to make the motion and another one to second it. Motion to approve the site plan review application for 40 Low Street in accordance with the draft decision provided by the Office of Planning and Development. Do I have a motion?
Motion by Rick.
Thank you, Rick. And a second?
I'll second. This is Beth.
Thank you, Beth. Last chance. Any further discussion? All right, I'll call out the names of the present members for your vote. Beth DeLille,
Yes.
Ann Gardner. Ann, please unmute yourself.
Yes, sorry.
Thank you. Rick Tainter,
Yes.
MJ Verde,
Yes.
Don Walters,
Yes.
Bonnie Sontag, yes. Motion is approved. Approval, we go to our other business, approval of minutes for,
Thank you.
oh, you're welcome. Sorry.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming. Approval of the minutes for April 1st, 2020. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve, Rick.
Thank you. A second?
I'll second.
I think I heard MJ first, so was that you?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any amendments?
Bonnie, this is Rick. I just had 2 amendments that I forwarded to you and Linda. I think they're pretty
Okay,
simple.
I got
so
them.
Linda has them, so that's good. Okay, and they're, okay. All those in favor, I'll have to read your names again. Beth DeLeo,
Yes.
Ann Gardner,
Yes.
Rick Tainter,
Yes.
MJ Verde,
Yes.
Don Walters,
Yes.
Bonnie Sante, yes, thank you. Okay, Andy, do you have any updates?
At this time, not in particular. I think you've gotten a good sense that I expect as planning director, I'm expecting, although I'm not a healthcare professional, I am expecting several months of doing these online hearings, any meetings this way, just because I don't see any likelihood of having social distancing protocols relaxed, whether or not they're required or wise to have physical meetings. So I guess we should all get sort of settled into this particular format. I'm happy to answer questions on any particular planning projects or capital projects, things like that we're involved with, if any board members have any questions.
I actually do have a question. Just going forward, we have an agenda for the May 6th meeting that is up there, and we have a number of hearings there. Will we be going to a video format at that point?
There's not an expectation of us doing that. And there's actually, in my opinion, it's actually, there's a good reason for not doing it. One is there are some bandwidth issues that are caused by using videos because there's more information going back and forth. There's more likelihood in that scenario, in my opinion, of folks from the general public having technical issues on their end because the data back and forth. And that may cause some audio issues and delays. I have noticed that in testing out the different platforms and settings and so forth. So I would not recommend it for that particular reason. The other reason I think it's beneficial to not have the video involved, although I appreciate everybody wanting to see each other, and I actually would have no objection to it otherwise, is that the screen itself is then potentially taken up by more space where the board members' faces are, as opposed to the actual plans and information that folks are reviewing. So my ability to zoom in and show folks what the board is actually talking about, or that the applicant is talking about, would be hindered, I think, a bit by that. To me, both of these are good reasons for making a better access for the general public with less technical problems in this unusual scenario we have.
Okay, thanks.
Can I say something? It's Linda. So when people make motions, which the planning board, you guys always do it, but they didn't during the joint public hearing. I have no idea who spoke. Because they didn't say
Yeah,
who.
Linda, I actually took notes before. I think you were unable to connect at 7, so I took notes on that, and I can share those with you.
Okie doke. Thanks.
Yep.
And Andy, do you expect that I mean, you obviously have no way of knowing, but do you expect that the agenda is going to hold for May 6th, that we're going to actually start doing substantive hearings going forward?
Yeah, I mean, the planning board does have to make a bit of its own judgment call as to whether it's appropriate to move forward with projects and applications and so forth. You know, in the initial part of this, I think a lot of us were hoping that, well, we'll kick this can down the road a little bit, get some extensions, and then see what we can do. But I don't see, based on the information that's coming out on a daily basis, you know, although there's fluctuations, and I know we're all probably listening and, you know, getting in tune with it, it does not seem likely that it's going to be any time more than few months from now. And that's at the earliest, it seems, that we would be encouraging or allowing people to come back in physical proximity to each other with these public meetings, I think. So while I'm not a public health, you know, official, I think in fairness to the applicants and the general public and everyone else involved, I think we have a fiduciary duty to continue providing services, including the board's meetings and so forth. So in my opinion, and it's up to the board, but in my opinion, rather than having further continuances of things, unless we're actually noting some sort of systemic, you know, internet connection issue that folks are having, then I think that we need to proceed with, you know, doing the usual procedures we have. There are some things that, you know, projects that we can all think of that might be more controversial or difficult to deal with. And there's a lot of broad community input. And that's part of the reason why we shifted to the webinar setup. It's a little bit better for handling the public comment period, where each person should be given their allotted period of time to talk. And I think the Zoom system, I think, works pretty well for that. And I and my staff have been experimenting to make sure that we've addressed things like the so-called Zoom bombing and whatnot, so that our meetings can run like, truly professional public meetings and not circuses. And at the same time, I think, that we can continue to serve applicants and the permit procedures they're looking for, serve the neighborhoods and any interested parties in reviewing projects that are before the boards. But the board does have the opportunity, if it wishes, to grant further, extensions or continuances on applications if it feels it's appropriate or necessary. That may be open to some debate, but I'll defer to you.
And the recent legislation has actually opened things up, so we wouldn't have to necessarily worry if we had on May 6th, if we felt it was necessary to postpone a controversial application, we wouldn't have to worry about somebody coming in and signing an agreement to approve to the extension, correct?
Yes. In fact, while applicants may protest or may have some concerns on their part, and it's understandable on all sides, folks' concerns, but the board does have the authority to push this further out, if there's an item that's of concern. So, I think there should be a reasonable rationale probably provided just for in case there's any further frivolous litigation or whatnot. But just to clarify any rationale for pushing something out, but the board does have that capacity. There's a bit of a difference in permit types. So for variances under statute, there's 100 days. Special permits, the board wouldn't even have to ask for the applicant's permission. It could continue the hearing as needed to resolve issues. But yeah, I think that's a fair consideration to make. There's two hearings in particular. I won't go so far as to name them, but there's two hearings that one of which is a zoning amendment. The other one is a development project that I could see being, of community interest. And so folks may want to get together again for a physical public meeting or push us down a road a bit. My caution or suggestion for your consideration is just that it seems highly likely that we're going to be in this scenario for a while. So while we could kick the can down the road and wait a further date to pick up a particular application or a zoning amendment hearing or whatnot, it seems like we're going to be in this situation for a while. So either we push it way further out or we get going with things again. And that's just my take based on the information that's coming in. I don't see any likelihood of us having physical meetings until the fall at the earliest.
Right, thanks.
This is Bonnie. I like the idea of at least trying it. And if we feel like we are constrained beyond our ability to make a good decision or to have a good discussion with the applicant, then we will make other decisions. But I'd like to at least get started with some of the public hearings and see how it goes, and just all keep an open mind as to how we can make this work for everybody involved. Does that sort of make sense, so that we're kind of in an experimental mode, but doing real business at the next meeting?
Yep.
And obviously, if anybody has any comments or concerns, you can always contact me or Andy one-on-one. That's perfectly legitimate. So give it some thought and let us know if you have any further suggestions.
This is Linda. Andy, are you going into the office?
Yeah, so we are actually trying to limit the amount of time that we're in and out where we might be interacting with other, city staff and crossing paths and so forth. We're trying to follow the social distancing protocols as best we can as well. We're considered part of the essential, government services because we handle a lot of things that are related to, permits and statutes and so forth. So there's a, like I said, a fiduciary duty for us to continue doing those services. We've been trying to minimize the paperwork involved, and that's the only reason for the most part we really need to go into the building. Occasionally there's a file we need or something like that, but for the most part we're trying to keep it to a minimum, rotating days we're covering the office. But we're basically trying to get everybody to submit things online. We're trying to get to signing documents digitally and so forth, just to kind of automate things remotely, since it doesn't look like a temporary, it looks like a little bit longer than a temporary situation we're going to be in here.
So just in terms of me personally, if you want me to reach you by phone, do you want me to have your cell phone number? Because I do not.
Yeah, so I'll reach out to you after the meeting, and that way we can keep in touch between the meetings. I noticed you connected a little bit late to the meeting. We have found that connecting a few minutes early helps just to make sure things are ready to go. But
Well, I thought I didn't have a connection email. I found it in my junk mail. I don't know why. You're in my address book. It's very
Oh.
strange.
That's okay. No, that's.
I thought I wasn't invited.
Yes. Well, that's fine then. So yeah, I'll send you the portion of this meeting that I took notes on, and then yeah, I'll follow up with you and give you my number. That way, if you want to reach out to me between meetings or follow up on anything in particular, it'll be easier. Because obviously, reaching us via the work phones is not. It's going to be much harder for us to check our voicemail remotely. The email is a lot easier for us.
All right, I will not call the office.
Anyone else? Okay, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Rick.
Second?
I'll second it. MJ.
Thank you. All those in favor? Oh, sorry, I have to roll call. Here, where did I put it? All right, here you are. Beth DeLeo. Are you unmuted, Beth? We're trying to adjourn. Maybe she's probably
muted.
adjourned herself. Okay.
No, she's muted.
Ann Gardner,
Yes.
Rick Tainter,
Yes.
MJ Verdi,
Yes.
Don Walters,
Yes.
Bonnie Sontag, yes. Good night.
Good night.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.